Among the most rugged wilderness regions in the US, Mount San Jacinto is the second highest peak in Southern California. With no access road, the only way up or down is by cable car. And while temperatures can hit the 80s and 90s on the desert floor during May, the summit is still dusted with snow.
So we got up to the top, about to head out for our walk. It was totally perfect. And I guess you just think, you don't have a care in the world at that point. Seeing the snow, I decided, sneaking behind him, that I would mess with him.
Brandon.
What?
I just kind of turned to him and just nailed him right in the head with the snowball, and that point, it was on. It was just so fun, just throwing snowballs at each other in May.
Wait, stop. Listen.
What? What is it?
You hear that? Sounds like a waterfall. Don't get me mad.
So we headed off to go find this waterfall.
Unused to this kind of environment, the city dwellers from Dallas, Texas, don't realize that the mountain is playing acoustic tricks on them. While the sound of the waterfall seems nearby, it is actually rebounding off the hard rock walls and echoing around the mountain.
We eventually did find the waterfall, which was not impressive.
Wow. It's not exactly Niagara Falls, is it?
It seemed so simple when we walked off the path to get to the waterfall. It felt like all we did was around two boulders, behind a tree, and over the top of another boulder, and there it was. So we kind of, retraced our steps, and it was seeming to take much longer.
Can you hear that?
This way. Can't be far.
We could hear voices, but we couldn't really match up with them.
It's now less than 10 minutes before the tour party leaves. Brandon and Gina now realize they've not only missed their rendezvous, they've lost their way back to the station. It's beginning to be a true test of their fledgling relationship.
And so at that point, we decided, okay, we have to start yelling for help.
Hey! Is anybody there? Hey! Hello?
We're too short. Must have taken a taxi back. Okay, let's go.
We've now passed the rendezvous time. Now we have a real problem. Okay, before it was something that was very manageable. Now it's sinking in. I think we have an issue.
As night falls, Gina and Brandon are lost in one of the most desolate and unforgiving parts of the Southern Californian wilderness. But even worse, no one knows they're missing.
Brandon!
The most immediate danger for Brandon and Gina is hypothermia. Lightly dressed, they're at the mercy of the plunging mountain temperatures, which can drop well below zero at night. They must retain body heat, or frostbite, exposure, and eventual death may follow.
All we had was wind pants and windbreakers on, not any type of gear or something to prepare for this type of weather, or food or water or anything, because we originally had only intended to walk maybe a few hundred yards to take a picture and then head back to a mountain station. So we weren't hikers, we were tourists.
Stumbling their way through the darkness, Gina and Brandon are aware of another very real mountain danger.
We had been warned that there's mountain lions and rattlesnakes in these mountains. We weren't really looking to see any wildlife. We were hoping we didn't see any wildlife at that point.
Although no longer out in the open, Brandon and Gina are still at the mercy of Mount San Jacinto's bitter chill.
Well, that night, yeah, it really got to a level of cold that I've never experienced before.
Brandon and Gina survive a long, cold night in their makeshift shelter. Exhausted, they've had nothing to eat or drink in the last 24 hours. Even so, Gina's mind is on more everyday anxieties.
This was by far the most awkward date I had ever been on in my life. Here I am with this guy I barely know, and I'm stuck. Now he's going to, smell my morning breath, and he's going to see me without my makeup on, and I have dirty hair, and it's all those classic girl things you think of when you're in a new relationship.
Brandon's thoughts are on more practical matters.
In my mind, I'm going through a checklist, okay? There's a series of fail-safes. First off, the tour bus had a head count and a list of names, so they would have known we didn't make it back on the bus. Secondly, at dinner that night, some people from my firm would have noticed we're not there.
Unfortunately, the fail-safes have not triggered a search. With the convention winding down, Brandon's work colleagues have not noticed their absence. Brandon and Gina are not expected home for another 2 days, so their families have no idea they're missing. Brandon and Gina climb further up the mountain, thinking they need to go higher to reach the cable car station. They're in for a shock.
Oh my God.
There's no sign of the station. Gina and Brandon now realize they've crossed to a different ridge of the mountain.
Hey, look. Look at that tree.
There are a lot of trees.
No, that was that dead one we passed on the way up from the cable car.
We climbed a hell of a long way up.
Yeah, we did.
They now know they're more lost than they thought. And facing another freezing night at this altitude could kill them. The young couple need a plan.
See that creek? That creek running there?
And that heads down towards Palm Springs.
Yeah.
We made the decision that we're gonna try and walk our way out of here. We're going to try and follow the mountain river, and it has to lead out somewhere.
Let's go.
What Gina and Brandon don't realize is that between them and the river is some of the most treacherous terrain the mountain has to offer.
So we kind of look at each other and say, all right, well, we have nowhere to go but down. And it's steep. It's very steep at that point. We slid on our butts, I guess, with one leg straight out in front of us, the other leg bent up. And we moved. Definitely shook loose some of the rocks around us, which got a little frightening.
Boulder, about the half the size of a suitcase, goes tumbling all the way down, and then you hear that just hit the bottom of this rock face. If we make a mistake, we're either dead or we're hurt to the point to where we probably will die. Gina, as she was trying to slide down, had kicked a rock or some rocks.
Brandon, watch out!
And here it's coming straight for me, straight for my head.
Brandon! No. Where are you?
This thing probably missed me by about a foot and a half.
I'm okay.
That was really, really close.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The mountain is too steep and treacherous to climb back up. Brandon and Gina are now committed to sliding down the rest of the rock face, despite the danger.
No.
Texas, the better part of a day, and around 4 or 5 o'clock, we finally make it to the bottom.
It's the first water Brandon and Gina have drunk for over 24 hours. Water could prolong their survival, but with no source of food, their health is already deteriorating, and their judgment too. They think that following the river will lead them to safety. They have no idea what lies ahead in this hostile wilderness.
The stream we were following would get really narrow to the point where you could almost jump across it, to really wide to the point where we had to look for like 4 and 5 rocks to hop across. And you essentially kind of play leapfrog, trying to just hop on rocks to get your way over. You know, the last thing you want is wet feet.
Under normal circumstances, getting wet would be an inconvenience. But with night approaching in the cold mountain environment, it could spell disaster for Brandon and Gina.
We get to a point where I'm leading, and I'm going down like a downed log. And I guess it's something that I learned through my years of cheerleading, is that you think light. You train your body to think light. I made it down safely, but he's 60 pounds heavier, might not support him the way it supported me.
Instantly, I'm soaked from the thighs down.
In wet clothes, Brandon is now at real risk of hypothermia. With no cave to shelter in, the couple need to think fast to prevent the creeping cold of night from freezing Brandon to death.
I'm gonna get these shoes off. So at that point, I guess my nurturing instinct kind of kicked in, I guess, to take care of him.
And we huddled up again to keep us warm, and she sat on my feet throughout the night, trying to help keep them warm.
After 2 nights stranded in a savage mountain wilderness, with no food or way out, all Brandon and Gina have left is a determination to keep going.
We're not gonna die here. And also, we just really didn't want to sleep another night out in the freezing cold. We wanted to get ourselves out of there.
Then suddenly, signs of life appear in the distance.
Well, first, I'm making sure I'm not hallucinating. We haven't eaten, we haven't slept. At this point, I'm sure that my judgment is starting to not be as sharp as it once was.
You see that?
What?
That.
Oh my God. Hey!
All of a sudden, you just get this feeling of, oh, I think we made it.
Is anyone in there?
No.
Brandon and Gina realize this is not your average campsite.
We definitely know right off the bat that something's wrong.
Stuff had been buried a little bit by dirt. And at this point, we're realizing this is not a good situation. We don't hear anybody, we don't see anybody. It's just a very ominous feeling.
Hey! Hey, Brandon! Look at this.
So we start going through the bag, the contents of the bag. We're discovering these maps. We had no idea really what we were looking at, but just that there were some sort of maps. And there was obvious writing in the white space.
Brandon, look. This is today. This is May 8th. Someone's here. We're gonna get
No, Gina. This diary's a year out of date. It's May 8th, 2005.
It was just a blow. That, for one, how have we found this exactly 1 year ago to the day? And in seeing everything that he had, he was obviously prepared for something. You know, he was an experienced climber, experienced hiker, that this campsite's abandoned. You don't know what the hell is going on.
May 8th, 2005. Took a fall. Too weak to climb out a canyon. Down is gorge. No way out. Gorge? What gorge? Wait, listen, here's another one. Listen. May 11th. I'm 60 today. Down to last 2 crackers. God, this is... Here, May 14th. Heading down to creek for water. Goodbye and love you all.
I'm looking through the bag and I come across all of his identification. I see his name is John Joseph Donovan, and he's in his 60s from Virginia. And I come across his driver's license, his credit cards, his debit cards, his everything.
Gina, these are someone's last words. Gina, we've just read someone's last words.
That was exactly a year ago to the day that we found this campsite of somebody saying goodbye to the world. And now here we are in the same place exactly a year ago to the day. And to go from such a high to such a low in such a short amount of time was just something that shakes you. This doesn't happen. You know, this is stuff that people make up, you know, and put into a movie.
In digging through all of his cards, I see the prayer card that has the St. Christopher prayer. And that's when just too many loose ends were tied at that point, that St. Christopher is the patron saint of travelers. And I had been praying to St. Christopher my whole way along. His penmanship was very much like my father's, and my dad's birthday was May 7th. And it's just all kind of coming to a head at that point. I can't take it. It's too much. And Brandon is continuing to read, and I'm starting to freak out. At that point, I took his bag and I gathered up everything I could. I gathered up his glasses, his shoes, his jacket, because in my mind, that's somebody's dad. And somebody's dad didn't come home.
For Gina and Brandon, the horror story they find themselves in is unrelenting.
Listen.
What?
Listen.
Again, the water gets us every time.
Listen, that's a waterfall.
Come on.
So we get closer. We make our way back around some big trees that were close to the water, make our way around. And that's where we see the gorge that John had talked about. And we're stuck. We're completely stuck.
We see what he'd written about. There's about 140, 150 foot waterfall and no way to get around it.
And at that point, we knew we were not getting out. There's no way. There's no way we can get out. This man was prepared. He had everything he needed. We were not prepared for anything. We just had on our running shoes. We had chapstick, a digital camera, sunscreen, and running shoes. And this man was prepared and he couldn't get out.
But the missing hiker, John Donovan, has left Brandon and Gina a lifeline.
Yes. Matches.
I don't know how we missed it, that throughout all of his things, bag inside a bag, inside a bag, inside a bag, he had another little bag of wooden Strike Anywhere matches that were still dry. By some miracle, they were still dry.
our bodies are starting to tell us that they don't have much more. We had turned some type of a physical corner, and it was downhill.
For Brandon, the discovery of John Donovan's body is the last straw.
That's when I made the decision, I'm gonna light the whole place on fire, the whole damn place. And they have to see the smoke from that. And it took much faster than I anticipated. Made sure the fire caught, and within 60 seconds, it's a large fire and getting larger. It burned for about 45 minutes or so, produced a great deal of smoke. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and the thought was, I mean, they have to see this. I mean, if they don't see this, what next? We just kept on putting our hope in this. This is kind of this is our last shot. And we watched the fire begin to smolder, and eventually wasn't putting out nearly the same smoke. It basically burnt itself out. And it was the most beautiful sound we'd ever heard, because coming up from the valley floor is that sound of a helicopter. I think we both would have cried if we had tears, but we're both so dehydrated, we didn't have enough moisture in our body to come up with tears.
It's just such a feeling of just pure joy that I don't even know how to formulate the words. I don't know what to even say. It's a pretty amazing feeling. And if we hadn't had that bag, there would have been no way out.
We're just so thankful to John Donovan for his sacrifice, and his last action, even not being on this earth anymore, was helping 2 people.